Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to another exciting episode of Prepping Ohio. And today, as you can tell by the thumbnail, we're going to discuss some changes from the FCC for CB operators. Stick around. So the FCC, in its infinite insanity, has decided to grant us extra privileges on the 11 meter band, 27 megahertz. As you may also know it as the chicken band, the citizen band, CB, trucker radio, trucker phone, trucker talkie thing. Well, you've all seen them in the movies, breaker breaker, that sort of thing. All the antennas on every semi that you've ever seen are most likely CB antennas. Now, there are a lot of truckers that are ham radio operators as well, and there's some that just monitor air traffic for whatever reason. It gets boring in a semi, trust me. So the allowance of frequency modulation to 11 meters is something that has been in the works for about 3 years as of today. It was in the middle of 2017 when, believe it or not, it was Cobra Radios that started this whole thing. They kept going to the FCC saying, hey, we're losing business, nobody's using CB anymore. We honestly believe that if we allow FM mode on CB that people might start picking it up and using it again. And I could see that. I could see how that could be beneficial. CB radio has been AM or sideband ever since its creation, although sideband kind of came in a little bit later. AM was the initial mode. In the middle of the 1940s, the FCC created Citizens Radio Service. It wasn't known as Citizen Band then. That's what CB stands for, Citizen Band. Citizens Radio Service. And it was primarily for remote controlled devices or radio telephone. There actually used to be phones in cars that operated on radio. Very similar to a cell phone, only different frequencies and different modulations. There was a CB, but it looked like a telephone. You could pick it up and you could radio home. Police officers use these, firefighters use these in their vehicles, in places where they could actually afford them. There is actually an Andy Griffin episode where Andy Griffin is sitting in his patrol car and he picks up a phone and he makes a contact to his base or something. I don't know if he calls Barney or whoever, but I don't remember that part. But I thought that was pretty cool. Kind of like an early cell phone. So in 1945-ish is kind of when the CB Citizen Band kind of became a thing. But it was until 1958 that it was actually called the Citizen Band. They changed it. And when it began, it was actually in the UHF spectrum. It was 450 through 460 megahertz. There were 22 channels that were taken from the amateur band in the 450 to 460 megahertz range. The 23rd, which was the limit back then, not 40 channels like it is today, but 23 total. Channel 23 was kind of left alone for hobbyists and for radio control. You could turn on a light in your house by modulating through your radio. You could turn on the pump in your pump house. You could open your garage door with your radio. That was kind of what Channel 23 was left alone for. In 1958, when it became known as the Citizen Band, it was changed from UHF to HF into the 27 megahertz range. There's 40 frequencies now that are channelized in the 27, the low end of 28 megahertz. When it was moved to the 27 megahertz range, it was also designated as Class D, Class Delta. There was A, B, C, and D. 1973, there was the huge oil and gas shortage, where that's where all the big block engines became small block, kind of get around town, not cool anymore cars. Well, that's when truck drivers really started utilizing the Citizen Band radio. They could call ahead to see if there's any gas stations, fuel stations, diesel of course, if there's any rest areas, if there's any smoky bears sitting at medians, speed traps, accidents. Should I take another route to get around this? Fuel was so expensive that they were looking for any way to shorten their distance between A and B. The CB radio was perfect. There was no internet and there were no cell phones available to anybody back then. I think the cell phone kind of was in its infancy somewhere, but nobody could afford it unless you were a stockbroker or something running around and some insane price to connect and to talk. And phones actually weren't that important back then. So the radio was ready, it was in your truck, no matter where you were at, you could pick it up and call ahead, hey, whatever your handle is and such and whatever. Speaking of handle, at that time, the federal government decided to designate the need for call signs. You had to have an issued call sign. You couldn't just say, hey, this is Rubber Duck, Smokey and the Bandit kind of thing. No, you actually had to have a call sign. And they made you pay $20 to get that call sign. March 1st, 1975, they reduced the price from $20 down to $4. April 28th, 1983, they removed the requirement to have a license at all. So at that time, anybody could go get a radio, pick it up, and start talking. There was no problem with it. Today, it's sort of a free-for-all. If you've never been on a CB, heads up. It's a circus. Leave your feelings at home when you go get on the radio. Now, the current limits for power on a CB is 4 watts AM for amplitude modulation, or 12 watts SSB single sideband. Now, what that is, the AM signal, there's a carrier, and your signal's on either side of the carrier. On sideband, there's a carrier, and you're on one side or the other of that carrier. Upper sideband, lower sideband, whatever. Single sideband is just one side of the radio signal. August 5th, 2021, the FCC decided to allow for frequency modulation. FM is a completely different signal. Now, I bring that up because it's going to cause a lot of confusions, I think. They're allowing another mode, FM, to be used on the same 40 channels. Now, AM and sideband, you can kind of tell, okay, somebody's on the other mode. And if you're a radio guy, kind of like me, that you sort of know, okay, that's what that sound is, let's flip over to the different mode. FM is going to be a completely different monster. And all the people that are using are going to be a little confused at first. Maybe some frustration, maybe thinking their radio's damaged, or somebody else's radio's damaged, or whatever. It may be a big distraction. The reason Cobra and ultimately President Radio, and I think Midland might have had a little part of it there. The reason they wanted to do this wasn't for you, wasn't for me, it was for them to sell more radios. Their goal is for everybody else to go buy a radio that is FM capable now. Pretty smart. Everybody's going to want to do FM. And the reason that people want to do FM, because we're coming out of a solar cycle right now, coming out of the bottom, out of the kind of the armpit of the solar cycle. That has to do with atmospheric conditions, the ionosphere, sunspots. That sounds like a bunch of horse crap, but it really does affect how radio waves propagate. In HF and sideband and in AM modes, your waves go up and kind of hit the ionosphere and can bounce. And there's a thing called tropospheric ducting in the troposphere. Your signal can get in the troposphere and kind of bounce around for a long ways and then come out. That's pretty cool if you're trying to do that, if you're trying to DX. But if you're just wanting to talk a couple miles ahead, hey, is there a state patrolman up here? Should I pay attention? Or is there an accident? You know, is there any spots left at the rest area? Is my favorite truck stop shut down? You're not going to want to hear somebody 3 states over. You're going to want to hear regionally, maybe up to 20 miles on a good day. You're not going to want to hear what's going on across the country or in another country at that time. Now, you pull over and want to play on the radio, flip over to sideband on a good propagation night, and then, yeah, you can hear a good ways. But the FM mode is kind of going to eliminate all that. It's kind of going to keep you in a nice little bubble in a range that you really want. And maybe 20 miles without all of the QRM, QRN, or QSB. QRM, QR mic, is man-made interference. QRN, it's QR November, that is natural interference. Man-made could be like a neon sign, a plasma screen TV, somebody running their vacuum cleaner in a house that's kind of like got dirty contacts. QRN, QR natural, that could be lightning crashes, could be northern lights, or any other sort of atmospheric conditions that can cause a lot of crap. FM, you don't really get that. It's a lot cleaner of a signal, and it's just better. It sort of go get like a broadcast radio, turn it on to FM, tune a station, find a station that's good. Now get an AM station, and it's good. It's got that warm, kind of muffled sound, and then tune off a little bit and move your antenna around. When it goes out, it's kind of crappy. FM is more of a stable sort of signal, and that's what's going to work for CB. It's going to be an improvement there after we get through the whole confusion stage. Well, that's about it for now. I just want to give you that little bit of an update there on radios. There are some more things coming regarding antennas that I will be doing. I have a few things shot with a long wire antenna, and I know there's a lot of people that's asking about the Chameleon Impasse 2.0 HF antenna system. I still want to do some more stuff with it, and I haven't quite got it all ready to go yet. But I will have it soon-ish, maybe a week or something. Stick around, subscribe if you haven't. I absolutely appreciate it. Any questions about this, let me know. Hit me in the comments, and we will get back to you. We being me. I will get back to you. I don't know why I said we. I don't know. I haven't had enough coffee yet this morning. Thanks for watching. As always, have a good one.